On today's news, oh my god, there's so much news! Impact and WWE are working together now. What? Triple H's reaction to the NXT releases, huge WrestleMania main event plans, Cody Rhodes pulled from tonight's Battle of the Belt show, Undisputed Era's name in AEW might have been revealed, my review of SmackDown, and Tempest's review of Rampage. So, not much happening today then. For all this news, hit that subscribe button and enable notifications to help us and also help yourself stay up to date with the latest wrestling news because it seems to be changing an awful lot and very quickly. So let's do this with the news. Lightning speed.
Support WrestleTalk!
On last night's episode of SmackDown that I'll be reviewing here shortly, tons of entrants in the Women's Royal Rumble match were announced, including the Bella Twins, Michelle McCool, Lita, but most interestingly, current Impact Knockouts champion Mickie James. James being an Impact champion was actually acknowledged on commentary and on social media after 2 decades of refusing to acknowledge the company's entire existence by WWE. Impact Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore spoke on this revelation, saying, WWE wanted it, Mickie wanted it, and Impact Wrestling's philosophy is always to work with other major promotions to create buzz for the fans. After Impact and AEW's working relationship reportedly came to an end last year, with Tony Khan mentioning that there were no current plans for any crossover, it now seems Impact have instead struck up a deal with WWE. Whether this will just be a one and done to get Mickie James into the Rumble with no follow-up, or whether something more comes of this, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe WWE just realized, oh, crap, we don't actually have any women. Get someone, anyone. Where's that Mickie James? What's that? We fired her and sent her belongings in a trash bag. Just get her on the show. We'll even mention that company she's in, whatever that's called. Are you excited for a potential WWE and Impact crossover? Let us know in the comments because I'll be replying to people from out of nowhere for the first 30 minutes after this video goes live. Next news story, lightning speed. And speaking of firing people, there were a bunch of high-profile releases from NXT this week as the majority of Triple H's crew he hired were let go. On the PW Torch podcast, Wade Keller discussed these releases, saying, "I've heard just a little about Triple H's reaction to all of this, and nothing super reportable other than it sounds like he's bummed out." No kidding. The guy goes off with a serious cardiac event, he comes back and everything is multicolored, Gargano and O'Reilly are gone, Ciampa isn't the champion anymore, and all of his colleagues that he hired specifically to be part of his team were released. William Regal was one of these releases, and he reacted on Twitter saying, "Thank you to WWE for a wonderful 21-year run. You gave a lad who was happy and in Wonderland wrestling on a carnival have a charmed life for 21 years. No complaints, and please no one waste time replying as I won't have a bad word said against the company. I will add that WWE saved my life in 1999 when they didn't need to, kept my family fed and took me all around the world. You have my gratitude forever. You allowed me to live a charmed life." Next news story, lightning speed. It was reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Seth Rollins could be in line for a WrestleMania main event this year. Reports following WWE's Day 1 Premium Live event suggested that Seth Rollins was originally the one in line to dethrone Big E before plans changed. And after last night's SmackDown, we now know that Seth is in line to challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble. I don't even know what's happening anymore. Brock on SmackDown has the WWE Championship, Seth on Raw is challenging for the Universal Championship, Impact and WWE are working together, so could Seth win and then Roman and Brock's feud is actually over the WWE Championship? I have no idea anymore. Next news, lightning speed. Cody Rhodes has been pulled from tonight's AEW Battle of the Belt show, with AEW social media saying he is not medically cleared. There's been no further reports to say what the exact issue with Cody is, but he's been replaced by Dustin Rhodes in the title match as they will be crowning an interim TNT champion between him and Sammy Guevara instead. And finally for the news, lightning speed. AEW have filed a trademark for the name Paragon and provided a logo that looks looks great, doesn't it? Kyle O'Reilly has referred to himself, Adam Cole, and Bobby Fish as Paragon before when discussing their potential together in AEW, so it seems pretty likely this is the direction they're going. And with all that said, now let's get into my review of SmackDown in about 5 minutes. Thank you for being awesome pledge hammers on our Patreon page, The Findicator, Finn Brennan, and Abominable Michael Abbott. You can get your own shoutout and loads of extra bonus content by visiting us at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. The show started with Roman Reigns and also Pat McAfee having an aneurysm, I think. Nice to see you back, Roman. Glad you're doing okay. Reigns says that he never wants to see Brock Lesnar or Paul Heyman again, but whoopsie poopsie, here comes those exact two people. This segment was designed to show tension between Lesnar and Heyman already, as we continue to play the whose side is Heyman on story. Lesnar stole the microphone from Heyman and did his own introduction, repeatedly told him to shut up, and questioned him when Heyman started telling Reigns he loved him and he was his tribal chief. Reigns then stood up for Heyman, telling Lesnar to not talk to Heyman like that. My dude, You fired him, and then punched him in the face, and then we're gonna smash his head between two chairs. I don't know if you get to take the high road here. But regardless, Lesnar asked for a title versus title match. Roman punched him in the face, and that was that. I enjoyed the segment, but I really hope they're not gonna do the "it was Heyman and Reigns' plan all along" thing. But rather, Heyman had a legitimate change of heart after seeing siding with Brock was a mistake, or whatever. I feel like that's personally much more compelling as character motivation. Backstage, Sami Zayn ran into Johnny Knoxville and said that he needs to show him something as to why he should be entered into the Royal Rumble. So after Zayn had a match with Rick Boogs in which Boogs took all the offense and then won via roll-up after Zayn started to trash talk Nakamura on the outside, Knoxville came out and threw Sami over the top rope. It was then announced that Knoxville had just qualified for the Rumble because of that. I guess that's how it works now. Sure, I know Luke will be happy. New Day cut a promo saying they'll be champions as they're in a street fight against the Usos later tonight. Charlotte Flair then came out and announced that she'll be entering the Royal Rumble match itself so she can handpick her opponent for WrestleMania, but not before throwing to a video package that announced 18 of the participants in the Women's Royal Rumble, including the Bella Twins, Michelle McCool, Kelly, Summer Rae, Lita, and of course, Mickie James that I've spoken about previously. You know, the one good thing we can always look forward to in Royal Rumble matches is the countdown followed by someone's music hitting and going, "Oh, it's you!" And that's always fun. You know what isn't fun? Telling us all the surprises before the match. How do you screw up the most basic concepts of the Rumble? We like surprises. Naomi then came out and said Charlotte should give her a title shot. Why? "You've done nothing lately, Naomi," which is also exactly what Charlotte said. So Naomi slapped her, and after an ad break, it was time for a championship contenders match, my favorite. But as it looked like Naomi was going to win via countout, Sonya Deville said the match can't be won by countout anymore, and then later said the match can't be won via DQ either. So Charlotte won via natural selection. This was honestly a pretty good match though, and a good example of why Naomi should be given a lot more than she has. The Usos cut a promo saying they'll be champions, cool. Happy Corbin came out by himself next with a special guest for Happy Talk. And I wrote in my notes while watching that I would bet an insane amount of money that it was Madcap Moss. And after an ad break, an advert for NXT, a recap of Lesnar vs. Reigns, and a backstage segment with Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville where Adam Pearce says he needs to pick a challenger for Roman Reigns for the Rumble by the end of the night, we finally got the payoff of Corbin's guest, and it was Madcap Moss, because of course it was. Moss was dressed as Drew McIntyre in a neck brace, and they weren't funny, though one line did make me laugh when Moss took off the neck brace and said, "It was me, Madcap Moss, I fooled you all. Good job, you finally made me laugh one time." The two then faced the Viking Raiders, where Moss won with his finisher, now called the Punchline, in a few minutes. Sheamus entered the Royal Rumble next. Roman Reigns said he didn't care who Adam Pearce picked for his opponent because he's beaten everyone on this roster. I mean, he's kind of right. Usos vs. New Day was the main event in a street fight, which was a very polite street fight to start with, as they started doing normal tags. Much like the American Top Team versus Inner Circle match from Full Gear. What you doing, guys? It's a street fight. There are no rules. This was some good fun though, with some great action and near falls, with the Usos retaining once more, using the 3D, now called the 1D because it's one and done, through a table on Kingston. The show ended with Reigns back in his locker room though, as his next challenger came knocking on the door, and it was revealed to be Seth Rollins. That's actually quite intriguing, and I have no idea what's going to happen with these two world title pictures converging. Also, the one night of the year where Raw and SmackDown, sure, whatever. What did you think of the show? Let me know in the comments and vote in our community tab poll, where 78% of you voted for WWE and Impact working together? This was a decent show, all in all. An intriguing story with Reigns, Lesnar, and Rollins. Usos and New Day was very fun. Charlotte versus Naomi was pretty good, but can we please hurry up with the Sonya Deville and Naomi stuff now? This is a high 3, low 4 out of 5 for the show, for SmackDown standards. And now, over to Tempest for his review of Rampage.
I positive tested for both. I positive tested I tested positive for COVID.
That's right, WrestleTalk friends and fans. COVID Tempest is back with another review of AEW Rampage. in about 3 minutes. So this show opened up with a match straight out of PWG as Adam Cole took on Jake Atlas. Right off the bat, I gotta say, Jake Atlas being signed by AEW fills my heart with such joy. I think he's a perfect fit for the company, and he was one of the last names on the independent scene that I really wanted to see get signed. Sign Tony Deppen. You get an established star like an Adam Cole taking on an up-and-coming star that people might be a little bit less familiar with, like a Jake Atlas, and everyone gets over in a match like this. Adam Cole gets more over with a big win, and Jake Atlas gets more over being shown to the biggest audience he's been in front of this far. While it was going on, I thought this was a really fun match, and Jake Atlas came across as more of a star in this match than he ever did in NXT, and I think that's a lot bigger of a statement about NXT than it is about him. But unfortunately, Atlas did get injured in this match, just taking a regular springboard, and wasn't even able to stand for the Panama Sunrise, with Adam Cole putting him in a very simple, weak-looking heel hook for the submission win. Orange Cassidy, Wheeler Yuta, and Chuck Taylor came out to make the save after the match, and it really is disappointing. I hope Jake Atlas isn't hurt too bad. Get well soon, Jake. I want to see you do really big things in AEW. That being said, I thought this match was very good while it lasted. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 and a very fun way to open up the show. Next up, we had another exceptional showing from Hook as he took on Aaron Solo. These matches are all very simple, but they don't put Hook in any position where he could possibly look bad. And each week that goes by, we're seeing more and more from him. He's starting to sell a little bit more each week, and he's getting in new and different offense, and I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far. Give you a little tease right here. I'm planning to drop a particularly spicy take regarding Hook on the AEW Rampage review podcast later on today on WrestleTalk podcast, so make sure that you check that out. Spicy. Hook was able to beat Aaron Solo in a pretty quick match with the Red Rum. I thought this was another fantastic showing for him. These matches aren't blow away by any means, but Hook has it. This gets 1,000,000 stars. After the match, Hook suplexed QT Marshall, and it seems like we'll be getting some sort of teacher versus student match in the near future, and I like that you can see the progression of Hook's opponents as the weeks go by. We then had a tag team match as Ruby Soho and Riho took on Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. I thought this was another really fun match as Riho was able to get another big win over Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter after Hayter had a miscommunication spot, knocking out Britt Baker and allowing Riho to roll her up for the pin. They actually had enough time to have a pretty decent little match here, and I like seeing the progression of the Jamie Hayter-Britt Baker storyline. I think we're getting close to the breakup fairly soon, but I'll wait and see. I thought this match was fun. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. And then we had the main event as Daniel Garcia and 2.0 took on Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz, and this match got started before Mark Henry even had time to tell us that it was the main event. They were all just hitting each other with stuff, and that's not a bad thing, as this is a street fight, and you would expect to see stuff like that in a street fight, but at the same time, this match didn't have the same kind of like heat spots and shine spots that give matches like this a proper pace. Once the match got in the ring, I thought it was a lot smoother, and Matt Lee even turned into The Miz and John Morrison's favorite wrestler for a second.
Mr. Fuji! Oh, snap!
There were some fun near falls before Santana and Ortiz were able to get the pin, and I am kind of hoping that this little mini rivalry is done with now, although I do think that Eddie Kingston could have a one-on-one match with Daniel Garcia to really wrap things up. I thought this was a pretty fun main event, albeit not my favorite thing on the show, and not my favorite Rampage main event either. I'm giving it a 3 out of 5, but I still think it was a good time. And overall, I thought this was another fun episode of Rampage. You had a little bit of everything, good matches, a fun street fight main event, progression of storylines, and Hook. You always get more points for having Hook. I hope Jake Atlas isn't hurt too bad. This show gets a 4 out of 5. And that just about wraps it up for me. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on this week's show and last night's SmackDown, make sure you go over to WrestleTalk podcast later on today. Myself and Chopper Pete will be breaking down both shows in complete detail. Until then, get vaxxed, stay boosted, don't get COVID. I'm going to bed.
Coming up, WWE released Samoa Joe. Again. This is honestly getting ridiculous at this point. An update on Rey Fenix's grisly injury from AEW Dynamite, and WWE are reportedly returning to Saudi Arabia next month.